New Mexico Crime Files, a deep dive into the archives, shocking and notorious cases, the arrests and what led to them, and what happened to the subject. Here are your hosts, Dean Staley and Jessica Garate.
Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of New Mexico Crime Files. I am KRQE News 13's Dean Staley, along with my co-anchor Jessica Garate. Jess, a good one today.
This is a really good one. This is the fall of a New Mexico sheriff, something that we rarely see. I mean, this is the first time this had happened in decades.
And this is a longtime career lawman, which is interesting. And the more you looked into what he was about and what he'd done his whole career, the more problems you saw. And it's interesting. He played different roles in law enforcement throughout his career, but at each stage, it seemed like there was something going on.
All of it finally caught up to him. Now, this is the story of Tommy Rodella Jr. He was elected into office in 2010, but already had controversy before that, before he became sheriff. It started when he was a magistrate judge. The state Supreme Court voted unanimously in 2008 to remove him as the judge, saying that Judicial Standards Commission accused him of misconduct in several cases, including one involving a drunk driving charge against a friend. Then in 2013, when he was sheriff, the feds swooped in and raided his office, and that's where the story starts.
Yeah, and for those who don't know, this is Tommy Rodella, the sheriff of Rio Arriba County. The seat of Rio Arriba County, which is basically Espanola, which is a sizable city north of Santa Fe. So we're talking about northern New Mexico. And then Rio Arriba County goes all the way up to the state line, Chama in Colorado. I mean, up against Colorado. So that's the area that we're talking about.
So we did a lot of stories back then on this guy. And we're going to start right now with News 13's Crystal Gutierrez.
It gives the whole county a black eye. No matter how I try to distance myself from it, it's still Rio Arriba County. And it's something that I wish or I hope hasn't gone on. So.
Rio Arriba County Manager Tomas Campos says if the allegations against the Sheriff's Department are true, it's clearly illegal.
The allegations are that waiving of tickets is exchanged for investments into the scholarship fund. Of course, that's inappropriate and that's not legal.
Now, Campos doesn't know firsthand if the allegations are true, but an Espanola man told us he was arrested by a deputy earlier this year on misdemeanor charges, and that Sheriff Tommy Rodella told him if he donated $500 to the Rio Arriba Sheriff's Office Scholarship Fund, he dropped those charges. So he donated the money. The county just saw the donation form this week, saying it did not know the scholarship fund was up and running. Yesterday, federal agents raided the sheriff's office. And it's not the first time the office has been raided. State police swooped in a year and a half ago, taking computers and files after accusations that the department gave a tow company permission to destroy a truck in a deadly DWI case. Key evidence against suspect Juan Cordova, the brother of a former sheriff. Rodella denied it. And he's getting good at saying he did nothing wrong. Over the years, newspapers have reported that Rodella was suspended 3 times when he was a state police officer and investigated for smoking marijuana, fixing traffic tickets, and falsifying reports. His state police personnel file even disappeared before he was appointed magistrate judge in Espanola. But in 2005, he stepped down from the bench after allegations he helped get a friend out of jail. The Supreme Court then barred Rodella from ever being a judge again.
All right, that was News 13's Crystal Gutierrez reporting, a wonderful reporter, a good friend of ours, great person, did a really good job on this story. And the interesting thing is that we're starting with this idea that, wait a second, maybe the Sheriff's Department is waiving tickets as long as you contribute to their scholarship fund, which some people haven't even heard of. Like, what? You have a scholarship fund? So something clearly seems wrong.
It really does. And then that's when the feds start looking into it. But then there's a huge problem with that because the PRC shows that the scholarship fund was a nonprofit corporation and that they could do that. Like they agree and they're like, hey, what you did, that's okay.
Well, you know what I took that to mean, though, Jess, is that was their defense. Like, oh, we've registered with the PRC, but I thought, okay, but that doesn't tell us that you're doing everything appropriately with the money. I mean, okay, right. So you've registered, you want your, 501(c) status, you want to be a nonprofit, but we still haven't figured out who's getting the scholarships or whether, or if there's a bunch of money being taken for administrative use. right? In terms of, oh, we're going to give out scholarships, so we got to hire some people to do that. So I took that to mean sort of their cover was, well, we're registered, but I never felt like that was really exonerating them.
And we never could get to the bottom of it, of where that money was going. You put this money into the scholarship fund, but was it really legit? Like what? There is no accounting for it.
And not everyone had heard about this. I also find it interesting that we're starting with the waiving of tickets, but in this next story, in the next segment, we're going to talk very much about a different problem. So the problems are multiple when you find that different organizations are looking into Tommy Rodella and his administration.
It is. And even just in this one story, there was, misconduct allegations when he was with state police. It just keeps piling on and piling on. We'll have more when we come back. And welcome back. We have been talking about the case against Tommy Rodella and the big investigation into the sheriff in Rio Arriba County.
Yeah, and just one of the things that strikes me about this case is this is almost sort of an archetype, right? The sheriff of a rural county who has a lot of authority, right? He can get rid of a ticket if he wants. He can, and you just sort of assume, and I think this goes back to almost like the Dukes of Hazzard, right? With Boss Hogg, and then you feel like the good old boys were kind of running the county in any way they wanted. I think that happens in a lot of rural counties, and I think everyone, and I lived in Chama when I was a kid, which is a small town in Rio Arriba County, and you definitely got the sense that if you're a law person there, a lawman or lawwoman, there is a lot of sort of wiggle room, like, well, I'm not going to give you a ticket, or, well, I'm going to let you borrow that, right? So there's an assumption, I think, that there's a lot of that sort of small stuff that goes on. What Tommy Rodella is accused of goes sort of to this next level.
Yes, absolutely. And I think of that when you're in these little small communities. Everybody knows everybody, you've known them since they were a kid or whatnot, or, their parents or, so there is this little different dynamic when you're dealing with these rural communities. And absolutely, like this was one where, he just took it, just kept pushing it to the next level. I mean, it wasn't like the only time he got in trouble. This wasn't a one-time thing. Like he'd been investigated. We went back. So we've already done the story on the feds going and raiding the sheriff's office. Then in 2014, the feds were back to search his home. And this was a case that involved the sheriff detaining a 26-year-old man 3 months prior. This is Gabrielle Burkhart reporting.
The day after he lost the chance for re-election, the FBI served a search warrant in Rio Arriba County Sheriff Tommy Rodella's home. Hours later, the sheriff did a short interview with the local radio station.
I just wanted to take a moment, first of all, to thank the voters of Rio Arriba County. I really enjoyed serving as your sheriff for the last 3.5 years.
But the radio interviewer didn't ask him about the search. A sheriff's spokesperson confirmed the warrant is related to the arrest of 26-year-old Michael Tafoya back in March. In court documents, Rodella claims Tafoya almost hit him while he and his son were driving on a county road. Rodella said when he told Tafoya he was the sheriff, Tafoya took off and almost hit him again. Rodella says he eventually detained the driver until deputies arrived and arrested Tafoya for aggravated assault on a peace officer and resisting. The charges were later dropped. It's unclear what the feds were searching for or what they found in Rodella's home. But we do know the U.S. Attorney's Office has subpoenaed the sheriff to appear next week before a grand jury looking into the case. Last year, the feds raided the sheriff's office after claims Rodella was taking donations to a scholarship fund in exchange for dismissing charges. In an earlier investigation, state police took files and computers from the sheriff's office as part of a probe into the handling of a deadly DWI case. Despite all this, the sheriff plans to stick around for a while.
You still are the sheriff till December?
I'll continue being the sheriff till December 31st, and I'm proud to have served as your sheriff.
All right, so the plot now has thickened. We have Tommy Rodella, the sheriff of Rio Arriba County in northern New Mexico. There was, in our very first story, there was talk about, well, there was a fatal drunk driving crash, and there was an accusation that the sheriff's department allowed the tow truck service to get rid of the car because the accused drunk driver was actually a brother of the former sheriff. So you get that sort of old boy, it's sort of the old, these guys are all part of an old boys group and they're sort of taking care of each other. Then you get this talk about a scholarship fund, right? I'll let you off. I won't give you a ticket if you donate to the scholarship fund. Now we've gotten into this whole new thing about a 26-year-old who was dragged out of his car and pistol whipped by the sheriff and his son. So it just keeps piling on.
And this was a really big case. This happened in August of 2014. The FBI arrested the sheriff, Tommy Rodella, and his son, accused of roughing up this man during this bogus traffic stop. They weren't on duty. They weren't in uniform. And Katie Kim shows you how it all unfolded.
Disgraced Rio Arriba County Sheriff Tommy Rodella, arrested by the FBI this morning, only has about 4 months left on the job. And this by no means will be a clean breakup.
I would suggest that the sheriff resign. I don't know that he would listen to me.
By all accounts, Rodella won't.
Stepping down will not happen. Stepping down makes it look like he did something wrong. That will not happen.
The FBI picked up Rodella and his son in Espanola and charged them for violating a man's civil rights during a March traffic stop. The feds accused the sheriff, who was off duty at the time, and his son of dragging 26-year-old driver Michael Tafoya from his car, beating him with a gun and badge, then lying to deputies about it.
Today's arrest serves notice to those who would abuse their office and violate the public trust.
The sheriff claims Tafoya was driving recklessly and almost hit the Rodella's personal car before taking off. The Rodellas pleaded not guilty to all charges.
We have a trial within 70 days. He'll be returning after an acquittal as sheriff.
High-powered Albuquerque attorney Bob Gorens is representing Sheriff Rodella. The county manager says he's concerned taxpayers will have to pay Rodella's expensive legal fees.
He's really never off duty. They can say he's off duty. He's the sheriff of Arriba 24/7. He doesn't ever lose that title.
Under state law, Campos can't remove the sheriff from office because Rodella hasn't been convicted. Gorin says Rodella may take a leave of absence while his case winds through the courts.
The sheriff, as a public service, will do what's best for the citizens of Rio Arriba County. And if the county commission says that that's what they want him to do, he'll do it.
Now, Campos says it's unclear whether taxpayers will need to pay for Rodella Jr.'s legal fees. He's a volunteer reserve deputy, and Campos says the county could be responsible for him as well. Katie Kim, KRQE News 13.
Wow, Dean.
This is astounding.
It is really astounding. I mean, you have this man who says that it sounded like they had flipped each other off. It was like some road rage going on. And the person in the other car happened to be the sheriff, pulls him over, pistol whips him with his son in the car as well. It's just unbelievable.
Yeah, drags him out of his vehicle, pistol whips him with the badge and with the gun, says, I'm the sheriff, you don't know who you're messing with, basically, holds him at gunpoint, puts a gun to his head. So this is fascinating to me because this is the kind of stuff you think, wow, this happens all around the world where people in law enforcement who have a lot of power can do this in a small community with impunity. But I'm fascinated, and I'm sort of, I take real pride as an American that we live in a place where something like this can happen, and then the authority who does this gets held to account, and that's what's happening here.
Yeah, and this is something, like you said, doesn't happen, rarely see this, and for him to be held account, and that he would have to go to trial over it. I also want to point out, too, this was an interesting thing, because he was also married to a very very powerful state representative, Debbie Rodella, at the time. So he's getting charged, he's going to the courthouse, and you have a state lawmaker next to him.
Yeah. So this is Cole Miller, our reporter, reporting on the Tommy Rodella trial, being tried on civil rights abuses, basically at the federal level, saying you violated this other driver's civil rights by dragging him out of his car and abusing him in this way. And you're about to hear that this might not have been the first time that Tommy Rodella did this in this town.
Our cameras captured Rio Arriba County Sheriff Tommy Rodella coming out of federal court on Monday after the first day of his trial, where he and his attorney were confident.
The idea being when he's acquitted, he wants to finish his term. He's still the sheriff.
4 nights later, Rodella never came out of the federal courthouse, and his attorney wasn't talking.
There's no comment. There's no comment.
Neither did his family as they rushed to their Jeep and took off. The jury didn't buy Rodella's story that he was acting as sheriff, trying to make an off-duty traffic stop earlier this year when he got into it with another driver who turned in front of him. The two flipped each other off. That driver, 26-year-old Michael Tafoya, says he never knew it was the sheriff as Rodella chased him in his personal SUV, then pulled him out of his car, hit him with his badge, and pointed a gun at him. Prosecutors say it was simply a case of Rodella road rage.
Anytime that a officer is accused of violating an individual's civil rights, that needs to be taken seriously.
Other drivers testified that Rodella had terrorized them on the roads.
There were 3 other individuals who came forward after the indictment was announced and that was courageous.
Rodella's now convicted of violating Tafoya's civil rights and gun charges, now officially done as sheriff, as a convicted felon.
So this is a fairly shocking thing to happen anywhere in the country. It happened right here in New Mexico. The sheriff of Rio Arriba County, Tommy Rodella, is tried on civil rights abuse charges and is convicted. A jury says, we don't believe that what you did was within the color of law. We felt like what you did was a road rage incident, and you got out and beat up a guy for no reason and held him against his will at gunpoint. And then we find out that there were 3 other drivers who said they were terrorized as well. So that's fascinating to me, that you get the sense of what must it have been like to live in Espanola, and you see Tommy Rodella driving down the road. You might want to go the other way, right? Just acting with impunity in this community to do that to other people.
Not only that, like, you have either this sort of situation or you get a speeding ticket. Now you got to put it into this fund. Like, I mean, all the stuff that he was doing during that time to be a citizen, and wondering, who was upholding the law here. And
I really appreciated that they backtracked a little bit. We got some real perspective. So as an NMSP, New Mexico State police officer, Tommy Rodella accused of abusing sick leave, of falsifying reports. So there was trouble as a law enforcement officer early in his career. As a magistrate judge, he had to resign, accused of doing favors for people who were his supporters and gave campaign money. Then fixing traffic tickets was the next sort of thing. Well, we think you're fixing traffic tickets as long as people donate to your scholarship fund. Then, as I mentioned, we had this whole other scandal while he was sheriff that had to do with getting rid of a piece of evidence, a car that was involved in a deadly drunk driving accident, so that the person who was accused got off, and it turns out he had a relationship with that person. So just amazing, the long, long list of corruption in this case.
And I do also want to bring up, too, that his son had faced charges as well in this whole situation where they took the person out of their car and he was there. But that case against him fell apart because he had some competency issues. So he never went to trial on his charges.
Right.
Again, a jury finds the sheriff, Tommy Rodella, guilty. When we come back, we'll look at his sentence.
So the big news in this story so far is that Tommy Rodella, the sheriff of Rio Arriba County, is convicted on gun charges. So he's going to get 7 years for the gun charges, we know already. But he's also convicted separately of civil rights abuses. And the question is, how much more than 7 years will he get for those convictions?
This was super fascinating, just seeing, a powerful sheriff in a huge county now on the other side of the law and being taken away in handcuffs. And at his sentencing, it was very interesting. He still vowed to keep fighting. Again, this was back in 2015 when he was sentenced. This is Chris McKee. He was in the courtroom when Tommy Rodella got his punishment.
Walking out of federal court.
Do you have anything to say about the sentencing that's happened here today?
God bless you guys.
Friends and family of Tommy Rodella, the now disgraced former Rio Arriba County sheriff, wouldn't comment on his prison sentence. Rodella will spend the next 10 years in federal lockup.
Debbie, is there anything you'd like to say about your husband?
God bless you. God bless you. Join us in a prayer.
His supporters only offering prayer.
This is your guys' chance to say anything about Mr. Rodella here, about what he's facing here and what he's been convicted of. Is there anything anyone would like to say?
Yes, God bless.
In September, a jury convicted Rodella of civil rights violations and gun charges. It was early last year when a 26-year-old man pulled out in front of Tommy Rodella. The sheriff chased him down, wrestled him out of the car, handcuffed him, and held a gun to his head. The victim complained to state police, and federal prosecutors took over the case.
When one of those officers crosses the line and violates someone's civil rights, and there are the facts to prove that person needs to be held accountable. That's what happened here today.
No cameras were allowed in this federal court hearing today, but going into this sentencing, Tommy Rodella faced 17 years in federal prison. However, a judge chose to go lighter on him, saying Rodella isn't a threat if he isn't a law enforcement officer.
Rodella is now a felon, so he can't serve in law enforcement. He also has to pay a $200,000 fine and get rid of all of his guns. It's a far cry from what Rodella's attorney predicted in August.
He'll be returning after an acquittal as sheriff.
Still, Rodella's supporters say they're not giving up on the former sheriff.
Our Father whom art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Let justice be brought about this.
Chris McKee, KRQE News 13.
All right, some great reporting there by Chris McKee, who's also one of our favorite reporters. He works in management now in our newsroom, a great guy and a really talented, hardcore reporter. A really amazing skills as a reporter. Telling us 10 years. 10 years is what it cost Tommy Rodella for all of the things he did in his time as sheriff in Rio Arriba County.
And I remember, Dean, I was pretty shocked. I really didn't think, I knew he'd get punished, but that's a long time to be serving.
Yeah, and this is federal time, so it's not get out early time. I mean, the federal is generally day for day. So when you hear 10 years, you're not going to get out for 10 years. You can't, cut that in half like you do in the state system. Yeah.
Yeah, his attorney told the judge that Rodella was going to appeal, which failed years later. That just never went through. And he got out of federal custody in 2023. I tried tracking down, I tried looking, not sure what he's up to now.
Yeah, and we should point out, too, that there was early in this reporting, we did a ton of reporting on this, we spent years doing it, there was still that case where there was talk about, and there was an entire search by the FBI looking for documents related to the charity potentially scandal. I don't want to say there was a scam or a scandal, but there was this idea that if you got pulled over speeding in Rio Arriba County, they might say, hey, if you donate to our sheriff's office scholarship fund, we'll let you off so that you could pay your way out of these things. And that never got charged. Yeah. So we just, to this day, we don't know what the feds knew about that, how close they got to filing charges, if there really was there were shenanigans going on. So that's another one that just never even got adjudicated.
And it's just, it kind of reminds me a little bit of this pay to play, the kind of what we saw with APD right now with the DWI scandal. Okay, where's all this money going? How much money was collected? And then we couldn't get to the bottom of it is just really interesting.
Yeah, and I want to say it again. I don't want to belabor this point, but having lived overseas, I was a Peace Corps volunteer in Latin America. I spent summer in Mexico. There are plenty of places around the world where there is no accountability for law enforcement. We even in this country feel like, well, there's not always accountability, right? We're always sort of battling back and forth on that line. Are people being held to account who are in law enforcement? And I was just, as an American, really heartened at this story. Certainly, I'm not happy that someone's going to jail, but the fact that someone has done something that really is well beyond what you should be doing as a lawman, and you get held to account for it, I think speaks just wonderful things about this country.
Absolutely, and that was one of those things as we were covering the story over and over in different aspects of it, and just for years, and it was like, what is it going to take to stop this guy? There was just so much coming out of all these different things. Just for a sheriff should not have been okay. Yeah. And it seemed like for a couple of years there that we weren't sure we were going to see this day, and then justice was served.
Jess, can I bring up an inside baseball behind the scenes newsroom thing? I don't know if you remember this, but during this time, I don't know if you remember this, but there was a beef between the sheriff's office and the Forest Service. Do you remember that?
Yes.
There were people, and I can't remember the details, so I want to be careful about this because we're reporters, so we like to be, these are the facts. But there was talk that the sheriff's department was giving tickets or pulling people over with the Forest Service. And there's always in rural New Mexico a tension between people I want to go hunt in the forest. Why do I need a permit, right? Why do I need a deer tag? Or people are poaching deer, or people are going to cut firewood without a permit. So there's this kind of tension between the locals who feel like, well, that mountain is ours, this forest is ours, and the Forest Service who's up there doing a job and saying these are the rules. And I do you remember that?
Oh, absolutely. There was definitely another shenanigan thing going on.
Yeah.
Where.
And I remember there were Forest Service people saying, well, you shouldn't be pulling us over on Forest Service land. And there was definitely some friction between the two sides, between the sheriff's office and the Forest Service. And we all wondered in the newsroom if that had something to do behind the scenes of the feds getting more serious about saying, okay, we're not going to let this go on anymore. Because the U.S. attorney has a lot of different priorities they're trying to solve, and organized crime, terrorism. There's all kinds of things they're going after, so they have to sort of prioritize. And we all wondered if that didn't have something to do with this being elevated. Okay, we're going to take care of this for once and for all. We're going to go after one of the things that's been accused, that he's been accused of. Yeah. So anyway, that's the inside. The KRQE News 13 newsroom story that we never went.
We couldn't get to the bottom of it.
As reporters, oftentimes you never get to the bottom of something like that, and it's sort of left there. But we did hear talk about that. Yeah.
Interesting case.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Jess, it's been another one. It's been a whole.
This is great.
Yeah, this flew by.
Yeah, it did. Join us next time.
Yeah.
Next week's New Mexico Crime Files.